And the Fever front office is crashing out right now. They don't know what to do.
Put Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White in front of the microphone yesterday. Oh, we love each other. Everything's fine and dandy.
And they are breaking under the pressure.
Only for today, for them to reveal Scott Agness gets fired by the Indiana Fever. They have revoked his credentials.
They are under more heat than they have ever been under.
They fired the one reporter telling us the truth. Let that sink in. The Indiana Fever didn't like what Scott Agness was reporting, so they took his credentials, sent him an email, didn't even pick up a phone, and silenced the only voice in that building willing to give Caitlin Clark fans actual information.
Scott Agness was the only one that reported on Caitlin Clark's ankle injury last year. The only one. Scott Agness was the only one that told us that Aliyah Boston's lower leg injury was actually a meniscus tear that they're dealing with.
This isn't a sports story anymore. This is a cover-up, and we are watching it happen in real time. Let me set the scene for you because you need to understand the full picture before we go any further. The Indiana Fever spent the last several days doing damage control. Full PR mode. They called Yahoo Sports. They sent Lexi Hull out to do the front office's bidding. They put Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White in front of microphones, smiling, telling us everything is fine and dandy. We love each other. There's no tension, nothing to see here. And then the very next day, after a 2-hour team meeting, they revoked Scott Agness's credentials, banned him from all team events. Done. Over. Out. You can't make this up. The timing alone should make your blood boil.
Scott Agness got fired for saying a little bit too much, being a little bit too forthright with his information. Yes, he held some things back. Yes, he didn't reveal everything, but he at least revealed something.
They did the press tour first, manufactured the piece. Let the story breathe for a second so it didn't look like a knee-jerk reaction. And then they dropped the hammer on the one reporter who had been actually doing his job. That's not coincidence. That's calculated. That is an organization that moves like it has something to hide. And here's what you need to understand about Scott Agness, because some people in this conversation want to dismiss him, want to write him off. Scott Agness was the only reporter who told us about Caitlin Clark's ankle injury last season. The only one.
Scott Agness puts out a statement. He lets us know they didn't like my reporting on the back injury. I called it strategic planning. They didn't like that.
Every other credentialed journalist sitting at practice, cameras out, notebooks open, relationships with the PR staff, season tickets to the press row gravy train, none of them said a word. Not one. Scott Agness told us. And this year, when Aliyah Boston went down with what the team was calling a lower leg injury, Scott Agness was the one who reported it was actually a meniscus tear. A meniscus tear. That's not a lower leg injury. That's a completely different level of severity and a completely different conversation about roster management and player health. And the Fever was just out here calling it a lower leg injury like we wouldn't notice. Scott Agness noticed. Scott Agness told us. And now Scott Agness is gone.
This is a problem for the Indiana Fever. And unfortunately for the Indiana Fever, this isn't a Caitlin Clark-centric problem. This is a problem about the organization. This is a problem with management, how they're run, the precedent that they're setting.
The specific incident they cited, the stated reason they pulled his credentials, was a tweet about Caitlin Clark being held out of a game approximately 100 minutes before the Fever defeated Portland on May 20th. The Fever PR staff called it, quote, inaccurate and unsubstantiated information. They briefly spoke to Agness before the game. No real meeting, no conversation, just a quick check.
Here it says, they said it was due to the spread of inaccurate and unsubstantiated information and cited my tweet about Caitlin Clark being ruled out 100 minutes before they defeated the Portland Fire on May 20th. So they are mad that he let it be known that Caitlin Clark wasn't going to be playing.
And then an email revoking his access. They sent him an email. Somebody who has been covering this organization for years, covering the Pacers, covering the Fever, embedded in that building, and they couldn't even call him. They sent him an email. That tells you everything you need to know about how this organization operates and how much they respect the people around them. Now let's talk about what Scott Agness actually reported, because the Fever wants you to believe he was out here making things up. He wasn't. He reported that Caitlin Clark was visible at practice but did not participate. He reported that Stephanie White confirmed Clark was healthy. He reported that this was, and I'm quoting directly from his statement, quote, part of a strategic management plan for Clark, who missed all but 13 games last season due to several injuries.
In my response, I told the organization that I stand by my reporting and the intent behind it. Because many of you subscribe to Fieldhouse Files specifically for Fever coverage, I believe it's important to be transparent about what happened.
He updated the story before tip-off. He included the coach's pregame comments. He cited a trusted league source. He did every single thing a professional beat reporter is supposed to do. And Stephanie White stood up there and said, quote, she's healthy, adding, we're not managing anything. This is just a back issue that we want to make sure we give the time to be ready. In the same breath, she said Clark is healthy and there's a back issue they need to manage time around. Those are not the same statement. That is a contradiction. And Scott Agness called it strategic management because that is exactly what it was, and for that, they ended his access. Let me be crystal clear about what strategic management means in the context of a player who missed all but 13 games the previous season, who is playing nearly 31 minutes per game, who has been spotted wearing a back heating pad on the bench, and whose team is in the middle of 4 games in 8 days. Managing that load is not a scandal. It's basic sports medicine. But the Fever doesn't want you talking about it. They don't want it reported. They don't want the word management anywhere near Caitlin Clark's name because of how it looks. And so instead of being transparent, instead of trusting their own fan base with information, they buried it.
Damn. They really threw Scott on the guillotine. To his credit, if not for him, that ankle injury from last year still would be unknown, and Aliyah's meniscus would remain a leg injury. At the end of the day, he just knew too much. Fever had to tie up the loose ends.
And then they buried the reporter who dug it up. This is exactly how they handled last year's ankle injury. Buried. No reporting, no acknowledgement. Fans left completely in the dark about the health of the most important player in the franchise's history, in the league's history, until Scott Agness said something. He gave us something we could work with. That is what beat reporting looks like. That is the job. And can we talk for a second about everyone else who covers this team? Because this is the part that makes me furious. There are reporters sitting at practice every day, credentialed, camera rolling, access fully intact. And when is the last time any of them broke a single piece of actual news about this organization? When is the last time any of them told you something you didn't already see in an official press release? You cannot name one, not one. They sit there, they take their video, they hold their microphones, and they say absolutely nothing that the Indiana Fever PR machine hasn't pre-approved. They carry the water. They protect the access, and the Fever loves them for it. Scott Agness refused to do that, and now he's out. This is what a chilling effect looks like in real time. Every other reporter watching this situation right now is calculating their risk. Do I report the real story, or do I keep my seat at the table? The Fever just answered that question for everyone in that press room. You report what we want you to report in the language we want you to use, or you're done. That is not a media policy. That is a threat. Think about what that means for you, for us, as fans. We already get so little. The WNBA season is short. The injury reporting is sparse. The access is limited compared to the NBA. And now the one credentialed reporter who is actually bringing us real information about the most watched player in the league has been surgically removed from the equation.
Jason Whitlock said the Fever are trying to put Scott Agness out of business because they mishandled Caitlin Clark's back injury. Rather than admit their mistake, punish a man who has provided them nothing but favorable coverage. These aren't serious people, it's a cult.
What are we supposed to do with that? Go back to reading approved press releases? Trust the same PR machine that called a meniscus tear a lower leg injury? We are the ones who lose here. Every single fan who genuinely cares about Caitlin Clark's health, who stayed up refreshing their phones during last year's injury scare, who wants to know the real story. We just got punished alongside Scott Agness. Because the Fever decided our right to accurate information mattered less than their right to control the narrative. And that should enrage you. It enrages me. We fund this league. We fill those seats. We stream those games and buy those jerseys and drive the ratings numbers that everyone in the WNBA office brags about. And this is what we get in return. Managed silence. And the reaction from the actual media world tells you everything. Jason Whitlock called it criminal. Christine Brennan noted that banning a reporter is never the right thing to do. Richard Deitch of The Athletic spoke on it. Ryan Glasspiegel from Front Office Sports raised it. John Root at Outkick. Keith Murphy, multiple credible voices in sports media looked at what the Indiana Fever did and said, this is wrong. This is a problem. This cannot stand. When journalists across different platforms and different affiliations are all looking at the same action and saying the same thing, this is bad, you're not dealing with a reporting controversy. You're dealing with an organization that made an indefensible decision and is now watching the fallout spread in every direction they cannot control. But here's what the Fever still doesn't understand. This is not a Caitlin Clark problem. They want to keep this story small. They want to frame it as one reporter, one tweet, one inaccuracy. Case closed. But this story is about the organization. This is about how Kelly Lynn and the front office run this franchise. This is about the culture they've built, where transparency is punished, where loyalty means silence, where access is a leash. This is the story, and it's not going away. Because the moment you revoke credentials from a reporter who has receipts, who has a documented history of breaking real stories that the organization tried to hide, you don't kill the story. You make it bigger. You make it louder. You hand it a megaphone. Every outlet that was maybe going to let this drift is now looking at the evidence.
Scott Agness, the Indiana Fever, are attempting to put him out of business because he let us know about Caitlin Clark's back injury. He let us know about Caitlin Clark's ankle injury that they were never going to tell us about. He let us know that it was Aliyah Boston's meniscus, not some random leg injury.
Ankle injury hidden last year. Meniscus tear rebranded as a lower leg injury. Strategic load management described as nothing being managed. And now the one reporter connecting those dots is banned. You want to tell me that's a coincidence? You want to tell me the Fever just had a problem with one tweet? No. Scott Agness knew too much. He knew about last year. He knew about Aliyah. He was getting close to the pattern. And patterns are what front offices fear most. The people who need to answer for this are Kelly Lynn, Amber Cox, and Stephanie White. Not Caitlin Clark. She doesn't set media policy, not the players. The people running this organization. The people who looked at a reporter doing his job in the service of the fans who buy the tickets and watch the games and care about this franchise and decided he was the problem. And I want to be specific about that. Kelly Lynn runs this front office. She signed off on this decision. Her fingerprints are on that email. If you are a Fever fan, if you bought a ticket this season, if you bought a Caitlin Clark jersey that put money in this organization's pocket, you deserve to look her in the eye and ask why. Why was a reporter with a years-long track record of accurate source journalism sent an email and stripped of access without a real conversation? Why does this front office respond to accountability by eliminating the people creating it? He wasn't the problem. He was the solution, and they cut him off. Scott Agness released his statement with full transparency, no paywall, available to everyone. He stood by his reporting. He explained his sourcing. He did everything right. And the Indiana Fever, after all of their carefully constructed PR peacemaking, after all of those smiling press conferences and carefully managed narratives, couldn't handle one reporter who said, out loud, with evidence, that there is something being managed here that you are not being told. Here is what we need to sit with going forward. Every time Caitlin Clark misses a shoot-around and no one reports it, that's the Fever winning. Every time she's listed as questionable and nobody explains why, that's the Fever winning. Every time the injury report says lower body and you don't get a follow-up, that's the chilling effect doing exactly what it was designed to do. They didn't just ban Scott Agness. They sent a message to every reporter in that building about what happens when you go off script. And the cost of that message is paid by us, by the people who care most about this team and this player. We deserve better than an organization that treats honest journalism like an act of war against them. Here is the verdict. The Indiana Fever didn't revoke Scott Agness's credentials because he got a story wrong. They revoked his credentials because he kept getting stories right, the ones they didn't want told. And every single fan of this team, every person who cares about Caitlin Clark's health and this franchise's future, should be demanding answers from the people who made that call. Silence is not transparency. Banning reporters is not integrity. And we are not just accepting this. And if you've been watching this unfold and nobody in your circle gets it, you're in the right place. Courtside Leaks is where we see what the cameras don't show and say what the commentators won't. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because when the next story breaks, you'll want to be the first one who knew.